Is it worth your money? That's the question being asked when it comes to investing. In this video, I will tell you why Krevel is or isn't worth investing in. We're going to start with a couple of liquidity ratios which tell us something about the ability of Krevel to pay its short-term debts. Both the current ratio and the asset test need to be higher than 1 to assure us that this company is in fact liquid enough. The asset test is most likely going to be a bit lower than the current ratio, but this is normal. As you can see, the current ratio for Krevel is great. At least you would think so. You can see the current ratio swinging around 120, 130 through the years, but the asset test stays a bit too much behind. As said before, it is quite normal that the asset test is lower than the current ratio, but this is a bit too low. A reason for this could be that they have too big of a stock, which is left out when calculating the asset test. This can be seen as a risk, so it's certainly something to keep an eye out for. Although the current ratio versus asset test doesn't show us the perfect results, the numbers we're getting back from calculating the net working capital are phenomenal. The bigger the net working capital, the bigger their safety margin. But again, when this is too big, you can get suspicious. Here, stock and accrued charges and deferred income can mislead your conception about the real numbers. At this point, you may start worrying a bit about these exceptional numbers. Next, we are going to take a look at a couple of leverage ratios. Our total debt ratio tells us something about where Krevel gets its money from, while the time interest earned ratio tells us more about possible financial risks Krevel is dealing with. What information does this chart provide us? These numbers tell us that, for example, in the year 2016, their outside capital was around 5 times as big as their own equity. This decreases through the other years to a more healthy number. Of course, it's good to have outside capital at hand when needed, but they also take a bigger risk by doing this. What if all of a sudden they aren't able to pay their debts to these people or companies anymore? But in this case, they really have stayed in the safe zone throughout the last 2 years. Just as with the net working capital, the numbers coming back from calculating their times interest earned, or in other words, do they have enough money left at the end of the year to pay all of their interests? The answer in this case is more than yes. With a ratio this high, you shouldn't have to worry at all. Lastly, the profitability ratios. Does Krevel make any profit throughout the year? For this, we take a look at the return on equity and we compare for you the profit margin versus the operating profit margin. Comparing the profit or loss made through the year with the own equity gives us a percentage around 10%. This 10% is the profitability Krevel needs for its future investments. This is actually a great percentage. As it isn't so high, we have to start worrying about Krevel's ability to pay everything necessary. On the graph on the right, we see our gross versus net sale of their sales. Both the gross and the net sales lay around the same percentage. So again, these aren't numbers we have to worry too much about. They are on the low side, but they still lay above 1. In conclusion, is Krevel worth investing your money in? Except for they're too big of a stock, you shouldn't worry too much about trusting this company with your money. They stay a company who sells product without an expiration date on them, so their products can't ever go bad. In general, Krevel gives us some positive numbers, which gives us a positive view in their investment future. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always do your research before you invest your money into anything.